Hi, I'm Pam Hemmerling. Kelly kindly invited me to guest host on her channel, and I am thrilled to be here today with a project for you all. I am a mixed media artist out of Seattle, Washington, and I also have a YouTube channel under the name Pam Hemmerling. So anyway, Kelly and I share definitely a love for old and vintage books and ephemera and paper and fabrics and all kinds of things like that. And so it just seemed like a natural fit for me to, when she invited me, for me to share a project with you all. What I'm going to be showing you today in a demo is using your fabrics and ephemera to create a composition in an art journal. And for an art journal, I am using a vintage book today. You could use whatever you have on hand. So I hope that this project spurs you on your creativity, and it gets the juices flowing so that you can do something similar or come up with something completely different. But I always think it's fun to try new things. And so if you have a stash of fabric or some ephemera that you have not been using, definitely you got to give this a try. So again, thanks to Kelly for inviting me to her channel, and let's get started. Before we get started, I thought I'd show you the supplies that I'm going to be using in case you're interested in following along or doing something similar. I'm actually using an old book as an art journal. It's a very large size, 8x11. And what I've done is, and I have a video showing how I do this, but I basically remove about every third or fourth page, and then I glue 2 pages together to make them a little bit sturdier. So it's all original pages. It's just that some have been removed and some are glued together. So I find that it's great to start on a page that actually already has something on it. And I love using old books in that way. So that's what we're going to be using today. You could use an art journal, you could use a piece of paper, you could use anything, a canvas, whatever you have on hand. What I'm going to show you here is I keep a little stash of fabrics, just little bits and pieces. I also paint on fabrics. Nothing special, but just like little marks and little things like this that then I later use, and I'm going to show what I'm going to be showing you today that I'll use in art projects. And the other thing that I do is often tea dye, use tea and soak my fabric so that they have a different patina to them as well. Can be, depending on what you use, it can be kind of blackish like this, or orange or brown. I also have a whole another bin of little tea bags that have been tea dyed themselves. I have old little pieces of book spine and thread and different things like that, and actual book spines that I use. Just little odds and ends I just kind of keep tucked away in these little bins so that I can use them. Then I pull them out at any point and use them specifically in art projects or different things. I'll take a piece, I'll take my scissors and I'll just rip pieces of it, and then I have something this size to use. I don't really treat it very precious. I don't go back and iron them or do anything like that, although of course you could. And I have a much larger stash that I keep somewhere else. So we're going to be primarily using fabrics and like different threads and things like that today. The other thing that I'm going to be using is just a pair of scissors, a palette knife, and Yes paste. Now, the reason I'm using Yes paste is just that it's super thick and it can hold any material down, versus a matte medium, which is often what I use, but it's a wetter medium and it takes longer to dry. And for the sake of this demonstration, I want something that is not wet, that just goes on and that the fabric will just adhere to the page. Glue stick probably would also work, particularly with some of the medium that we're using. I don't know, it might be a little trickier with some of the threads and things, but anything will work. Whatever you have on hand, I think would be fine, because I think it's all about experimenting, trying something new, and giving it a go. All right, so that's the supplies, and now we're going to get started. As a mixed media artist, I primarily work painting, and I don't just do botanicals, but I want to show you this as an example. I do all kinds of things, usually with collage, and then I paint over the top of them, just a myriad of different mixed media art projects. If you're interested, definitely check out my channel at Pam Hemmerling. The other thing I wanted to show you is a couple other examples before we get started. So this is one that I've done using all fabrics and some threads, because I really do enjoy this kind of project. And then here's another one where I've used all type of papers and threads and burlap and just a whole myriad of different items, which I just think is super fun to use up your little bits and pieces in this way. So for today, now I've lost my page, so I'm going to find it and I'll get back to it. I also wanted to show you this page only because I use tons and tons of paper in my work, and I just love when pieces pop through. So even though I'm using a lot of paint, I also like to use, like I showed you earlier, lots of different ephemera, and also tons and tons of book paper. I love book paper, and that is just really a fun way for me to use it. And I love having little pieces of it pop through. Okay, so let's get on to our project. I'm gonna use this page right here. This book is getting very full, and I don't have a ton of room. The other thing is, for the sake of being, not spending days on here, I've kind of put together some of the pieces that I want to work with. And so I'm just going to show you kind of how I put those on, and rather than and what I'm thinking as I'm doing it versus having me dig through and spend all the time picking out from all these many choices that I have, and it takes forever. So in this case, I want to cover this whole page. So I'm using a larger piece of fabric that I have painted on part of it, but part of it I haven't. This whole thing was tea dyed. It is not smooth. There is a lot of wrinkles in it. You could certainly wrinkle it, but for me, I don't mind the wrinkles or even the threads. So I might keep those threads on even as I may end up cutting them off towards the end. So all I'm doing with the Yes paste is just putting it across. I don't know if you can see over here. I'll pull this over here. It's a large, this book is large, so it takes up most of the screen. Just going over the top fairly liberally. And the nice thing about this is it will give me a little bit of dry time in terms of if I need a few minutes anyway, depending on your climate. It'll give me time to move it if I put it down and I don't like where it is. I can reposition it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So here we go. Got that on. Okay, so now I'm going to set that over there, and let's just plop this on as best we can. Now, I do want to preserve this word novelette up across the top, and I like the 340 pages. And for now, I'm going to leave this thread sticking. So, okay, there we have it. My first layer. And what I can do later is go back and add some more. I'll do it real quick here, but I can add some more glue where I've missed. That is the easy thing about this Yes paste as well. Not like a matte medium that then needs a lot of dry time, because it's so, and it makes fabric and things very, very wet. So I've decided I want to also preserve this factual prose. This book was a book of little mini stories and poems, and I really like saving some of the words and some of the text. Okay, so and I'm going to I have all different weaves. I like a neutral palette, so often I will keep things like a fairly neutral. I guess that makes sense if I like a neutral palette. But obviously, whatever colors you are drawn to, it is nice when you're beginning to put together something, a page like this, or it could be like literally on a canvas or on anything, that you kind of go through and choose your colors based on what you are really drawn to. And then in that regard, you'll be able to, it'll be a little more cohesive. So it's not like, oh, I have all these different colors. So it doesn't have to be as neutral as I'm making it. It has to be whatever color palette that you prefer. And then you can kind of go from there. But I do think it's important to kind of limit. I feel like there's freedom in limiting that. Now on this piece, it had kind of a slight tear, and I kind of opened that up a little bit more because I thought that would be fun, and I got to find my little piece. So I had this teeny tiny little piece, floral piece. I thought that would be fun to tuck in here and have it poking through that little hole. So that just goes to show you these little tiny pieces. Now, of course, you know, you can't save everything, but it is fun to have some little bits and pieces that you can use in a, you know, for something like this, just to add in, because it's the little details I feel like that can make this really work. So I have this, initially I thought, oh, I'm going to leave this part and I'm going to show you how I'm going to save that for last, because that was kind of like, oh, maybe I'll leave that as white space right there. But as you'll see, I decide to, I'm going to decide to put something there ultimately. But okay, so then across the top, this is actually not fabric. So these are all fabrics so far. This is actually handmade paper that I tea-dyed. And it's beautiful. I love that. Because I'm so drawn to, and I could use either side now that I look at it. I actually like this side just as well, but what am I doing? I'm using this side. Tea dyeing just can give such a rich patina to your fabrics and even to your papers. I just am fairly new to it, but I'm really loving trying it and exploring with it. So, okay, the next thing I want to do is I have this, I don't even know, like the edge of something. And because I want to preserve this word, I thought, oh, this would be kind of fun to, I don't know, I'm trying to think how I had it. Something like, let's see, something like this, I think. And I'm just going to set it there for now as a placeholder, because I'm not exactly sure what all pieces, how they're going to play out down here. So because I want to tie in, I have some pinkish color up here. I want to tie it in. And I have this very pale pink piece that I think would look really nice on top of this kind of palish orange. So I'm going to put that right there. I do think it's important to have some differences, which always make things more interesting. So if you have a smooth texture, like an open weave against a not open weave, a pieces with a frayed edge with something that doesn't have a frayed edge, you know, I think the differences can really make things interesting. Even though myself, I prefer I don't prefer a strong contrast in general. I do like to minimize my contrast, but that doesn't mean that I don't think differences are important. So then I'm going to add this little piece here. And I do think like carrying over the color can make this and this, I think this kind of pops. This kind of orangey kind of not matches, but it's similar. It's like trying to tie everything together. And I think that is an important element, or something to consider as you're putting your piece, designing your piece. Let's see, I kind of think I want it like this. Okay. So again, layering, I think, is always important. I mean, you could just put that down and that could be enough, but I think each layer and each little detail that you add just makes things just that much more interesting. So then I have all these little bits and pieces I was telling you of the string and threads, and I'm going to add this little piece right here, just randomly. Do I want it that way? So it's the thing, so you get to decide if I want it. How do I want it? Okay, let's, I want it to look kind of random, but at the same time, I want it to be a certain way. And I think that's part of the design element and composition. I think that's good. Okay. All right. So again, I think that kind of finishes that off. And then I have a couple pieces that I wanted to add up here. And here's the thing, I didn't add any other black in. I feel like the text is black. I went on and on trying to find something that worked. It didn't really work, but compositionally, I think it works as you move your eye around the page, and I think that is an important element. This is darker, but it isn't black. So that's just how that goes. But I do take all that into consideration especially when I'm putting in these little details. That's the time to kind of really be thinking about, okay, how do I want this to look? And is it unified kind of in the way it looks? Okay, so then the other piece I want to add is this little tiny piece of the edge of something, the hem of something, probably a handkerchief or something like that. And I just feel like the layering here again is cool. And I'm not really sure, do I want it like that? Kind of with, yeah, maybe. And again, there's really no right or wrong way. So it can be real easy to start obsessing, and I don't want to do that. I want to kind of go with what feels and looks right and then put everything down, because again, this is all experimentation and practice and just seeing what I like and using up bits and pieces of fabric and ephemera that I have. Okay, so I'm going to glue this down in just a minute, but I wanted to show you, this actually works like this. With this white space right here, I think it's okay. You got this kind of blackish mark up here. I think it's fine, but I want to show you what I decided to do. I found this random triangle piece which actually fits in here fairly well, which is just, you just never know what you're going to find when you keep a little bin of odds and ends. Okay, so I like that. I was like, okay, I think that looks good. But then it felt like it needed something else. So let's just glue that down and I'll show you what I mean. So these weird pieces, often these shapes, I don't try to keep everything, I don't try to keep things straight or even. I just kind of go with what I have. And if, you know, of course, if I needed something to be a different size, I would cut it down and there's, you know, that would be fine. But sometimes it's fun just to go, oh, whoa, I just randomly came across this piece as I was getting ready and thinking I would leave that white space. Then I realized it needed something else, and I have these little pieces of twine, which I thought were fun, and I kind of laid them out on it in a random pattern. I did not want it to be, I don't know what to say. I didn't want it to be exact. I kind of want it to be just like, oh, they randomly are on there, because I feel like then you can kind of look like you're trying too hard. So again, oh, that one's coming apart, and my fingers are getting sticky. So something, you know, something like that. So I'm going to just put a little glue on here and let it happen. I don't think it's critical how they're lined up, but again, I do like the idea of it being, you know, somewhat kind of appearing somewhat random. Not like in a row, although that would be fine. And sometimes that actually works, can work good. I think I kind of like them crossed like that. And then this one, just randomly, let's see how we can get that one to look more interesting. Maybe, yeah, maybe almost like two crosses. I don't know. Maybe that's too contrived. I don't know, but I do like that. So for this one, I think what I'm going to do is just put some glue here, just around. It will dry. I've got some thread in there. It will dry clear, so if I don't have it exactly, but I think that'll be easier than putting it on there. So, and I kind of like the idea of this going up, so maybe, okay, let's just put a dab right there, and then, okay, then it goes up, and maybe a dab right there. Okay, so it looks, you know, it looks casual and random and not just like totally glued down. So there you have it. That is and then I have well, here I was trying to finish, and I could take, you know, and cut these strings off if I want, or I could leave them on. It doesn't, it's kind of cool either way. Just depends on the look that you're going for. So here you are using up your random bits and pieces of fabric and ephemera and different strings and threads. And I just hope that you give it a try, dig through your bin of supplies. This exact same thing could be done completely with paper. It could be done completely with just old maps or, you know, any kind of ephemera or thing that you have. So it's just the idea of putting it down, kind of creating a composition that you like, and then just kind of going from there. So definitely hope that you give this a try. Thank you so much, Kelly, for having me guest host and show this demo of using your fabric in an art journal.